Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and today I am going to be doing the Sydney Roosters season review of 2025. To be honest with you, there's probably not too much to elaborate on, considering that they ended up where most people probably predicted, not to win the comp, not to make the top four, but to probably just make the eight, which I reckon a lot of people's predictions at the start of the year was anywhere from sixth to 10th sort of thing. But I reckon most people had them in their eight. They finished in eighth position. They had 13 wins in 2025 and 11 losses. Look, I think it's a pass mark for the Roosters just based on the amount of players they lost. Joey Manu, uh, you know, uh, Hargraves, Luke Keary, it goes on and on and on. I mean, they just lost such great players that had been in the Rooster system for many, many years and that were part of those back-to-back premiership wins in 2018 and 2019. So there was always going to be a big hole. And I think there were concerns when Chad Townsend got signed in terms of, I think it was obvious that Chad Townsend was probably only going to play maybe a year to finish his career at the Roosters. But it was obvious too that he was a backup signing to when Sam Walker comes back and whatnot. But um, yeah, I mean, I just thought that the Roosters it was a pass mark considering the talent they had lost, and it was a really big challenge for Trent Robinson this year. Um, every other year, I'd go pretty hard on the Roosters, considering the way in which they are expected to win premierships, being grand finals. If I did a Roosters review from 2020 to 2024, I'd probably go pretty hard. Last year, they finished third. They made a prelim, got smashed by the Melbourne Storm at Amy Park. That was the closest they've got to a grand final since 2019. So, um, I think they've massively underachieved over the last 6 years since their last premiership and grand final appearance. But 2025, I'm happy to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I don't want to go too hard on them considering the experience, the talent, the leadership that they lost. Um, they lost so many fantastic, great players. But I thought the Roosters, considering that they debuted Robert Toya, I thought Nafahu White really stood up in 2025. He showed what he could do. Mark Nawanga Netawase, he was fantastic. I knew he was a good winger from what we'd heard from rugby union, played for the Wallabies. You knew he had talent and skill and all of it, but I didn't realise he'd probably end up being the best winger of the 2025 season. The young bloke, Blake Steep, he reminds me of a young Boyd Cordner in 2012, 2013. He looks like a leader and a future leader. Hugo Savala, well, what a player he was. So there were players that made their debut in 2025. And special mention too, he didn't play overly too many games, but Zach Docker Clay, when he came on and played for the Roosters, I thought he really did a good job for them. I thought he's been a pretty good buy for the Roosters over the last couple of years. And I thought in 2025, when he played, he really stood up. There were many injuries. Obviously, Sam Walker came back halfway through the year, and then the whole Brandon Smith situation. He ended up going to South Sydney. But considering the players they lost, I don't want to go too hard on them. At the end of the day, Trent Robinson has been there since 2013, and the only he won a premiership in his first year as coach. And the only year that he hasn't made finals as a head coach at the Sydney Roosters was 2016. If we rewind back 10 years ago now, wow. Australia Day 10 years ago was the Mitchell Pearce incident. And that really didn't help their 2016 campaign. Jackson Hastings played a lot of that season at halfback. And I think they had Michael Gordon at fullback at one point. And yeah, that they were still sort of rebuilding after that 2013 premiership win. A few players left. I know players like Aidan Guerra and Sean Kenny Dow ended up going to the Newcastle Knights. So there was a lot of turnover in positions. But um, to be fair, I feel that Trent Robinson has always had a good team to work with. And I thought that this year, they still had a good team on paper, don't get me wrong. Tedesco, Tupou on the wing with Marky Mark. Um, I just thought that this year was obviously a year that Roosters weren't desperate to win that premiership. Even though that would have been their aim, I feel like this year was a year that was going to happen, so that they can end up getting a premiership roster for 2026 and 2027, which is exactly what they've got. So when I do the 2026 review next year, um, I'm going to go really hard on the Roosters if they don't at least make a grand final, based on the squad they've got. James Tedesco at fullback, Daly Cherry Evans and Sam Walker in the halves, and Reece Robson, current New South Wales hooker, in the number 9 jersey. That is an amazing spine. Absolutely unbelievable. You've still got really good players: Victor Radley, Nafahu White, Daniel Tupou. You've just got so many great players for the Roosters. I just thought 2025, after 2 months, they were, journalists like Brent Reed were writing them off for making the finals. And one thing I've learned about the Roosters is if you never write them off. They always sort of find a way to make the 8. And I thought Trent Robinson did a good job with this side. It was probably his biggest challenge since being a head coach since 2013. Probably his biggest challenge to make the 8 with the roster. Still a very good roster, but if you compare it to rosters of previous seasons at the Roosters, it was more focusing on developing their juniors and giving them a crack at first grade and giving them experience, so that in 2026 and 2027 they will be able to benefit from those few games that they had in 2025. So, yeah, look, 13 wins and 11 losses. Some may argue that with the roster they still had, they probably should have finished higher on the ladder. But I don't want to go too hard on them, considering that Sam Walker was out for half of the season. He's their number 7. He's a genius. He's such a good player. Brandon Smith, look, for me, he's still a terrific player. Like, he really is. I still feel like he can offer so much. For me, he's a 14, and he can come on. He can play prop, lock, hooker. I just think if you get him on for 20, 25-minute stints in the first half and second half, he's just that energy wrecking ball player from the bench that can just damage games and change the momentum. And so, look, I was surprised that the Roosters let him go. A mistake I felt that they made was letting Terrell May go to the Tigers. I could not understand that. Apparently, it was a culture issue. I could not understand why they let him go, because in my eyes, Terrell May was so unlucky not to play Origin, and I felt that they really missed his presence in the middle, just with his offloading ability and just his defense too. Look, he's got a couple of defensive issues when it comes to his lateral movement. Sometimes he's not overly too quick on his feet to get into a certain position to defend. But overall, he's a pretty good defender. Apparently, that was the main reason why Laurie Daly didn't pick him in Origin, because it had to do with his movement with defense. And I never really looked at it. I never really focused on Terrell May's defense until I did watch a game, 2 games after that comment was mentioned. And sometimes he is a little bit slow to defend on a change in angle to catch a player. But at the end of the day, you can't blame him. He's playing 80 minutes at prop. In my eyes, he's still a really good defender. I just think Laurie Daly was trying to come up with an excuse, to be honest. I don't know why they didn't pick him. Credit to Max King. He's a good player for the Bulldogs, but Terrell May had to be the prop forward for New South Wales. I was looking at it going, mate, it's not even that bad. Like, his defense is really good. So, I don't understand why they got rid of him. I really don't. I know the Tigers are laughing right now because they got him on a good wicket. And for me, he's in the top 3 best prop forwards in the game. I think I'd probably go Payne Haas. Mate, I would have gone James Fisher-Harris this time last year, but I'd go Terrell May at number 2 now as the best prop in the game. Just what he was able to do, his minutes, his offloading ability, the way he's just so involved. Every set he's involved. He's just an incredible player. So I don't understand why they let him go. There have been some recruitment issues, I think it's fair to say, since possibly 2023 at the Roosters. Why they signed Dom Young and then let him go, I know Dom Young has some defensive issues on that edge, but he rushes in, he comes in too early, and he really is a liability in defence for the Sydney Roosters. But why sign him if you're going to get rid of him that quick? I couldn't understand that. Like, it was just over a year, and then they let him go. Brandon Smith signing, they regret. Um, yeah, I mean, there's just a few things I don't quite understand with their recruitment. But now I look at their recruitment and think, okay, they've got some things in order. I think due to the mistakes they'd made and the money they'd spent on big players that they probably do regret, 2025 was a season that had to happen just for that year to go on and focus on the experience for the younger guys. But now, I mean, Cherry Evans, look, he's probably going to wear the number 6, you'd think, and they're probably going to just say, Sam Walker, you're a 7. I can always remember Daly Cherry Evans, Kieran Foran, in an interview a few years ago. They were discussing that they could never understand why Cherry wore the 7 and Foz wore the 6, because Foz was more of that organising, structured half, as that would take it to the line, as Ches was more of that running, floating sort of footballer that would play eyes up footy and played more as a running 6, more like a Cameron Munster. So it's going to be really intriguing to see how their combination works, Sam Walker and Daly Cherry Evans in round 1, because for me, they're very similar players. I feel like Sam Walker plays like a 6. He can control the game, he can control the tempo, but he's like Cherry Evans, where if he sees an opportunity, he's going to take it. So I remember 2018 for the Sydney Roosters. There was a brand new spine. Tedesco, Keary at 6, 7 Cooper Cronk, and 9 Jake Friend. And Keary and Friend had played 1 year together before that, but Keary went to the Roosters in 2017. But then James Tedesco and Cooper Cronk, if you watch the first few games of that 2018 season, the Roosters really struggled, and it took maybe 10 rounds for them to really, for these combinations to be formed and for it to start working between Cooper Cronk and James Tedesco, and for things to start clicking. So if the Roosters start quite slow in 2026, it wouldn't surprise me, just based on a new hooker, a new 5'8" in Cherry Evans. Yes, they've got experience and whatnot, but combinations are so important. And if I'm Trent Robinson, I absolutely 100% play that spine in at least one of the preseason challenges. Give them time on the field to connect. Give them time on the field to combine, and give them the time that they need and deserve to make sure that they can run out fully fit and ready to go for round 1. So the Sydney Roosters, look, I wish I had more to say about them. I'm really struggling with this one because I feel that they're a side that we probably all predicted would finish bottom half of the 8, if they were to make the 8, which they obviously did. No one really had them as premiership winning favourites. I don't think anyone had them in their top 4. They started the season really poorly. They got smashed by 50 points against the Brisbane Broncos at Allianz Stadium. And I remember there were huge concerns after round 1. Huge concerns. It was quite poor. And the Roosters actually scored the first try of that game. But it was just their middles in defence. I just thought that was another example of where they missed Terrell May, and just his ability, his offloading ability, the way in which he can engage other players around him. He's a terrific player, Terrell May, a really good player. I can't understand. There are just some recruitment things that, if I'm a Roosters fan, if I'm a Roosters fan and this side doesn't make the grand final in 2026, then I think that's a massive failure. I really do. So for me, my grand final in 2026 will be, it is the Melbourne Storm and the Canterbury Bulldogs, and I've got Melbourne winning the comp. So, look, I'm very rarely right when it comes to predictions, but it's good fun. It's good fun doing them. But I just think the Roosters really going to be intriguing to see how they go in 2026. But I'll focus more on what they're going to do, and we can dive into the way we think they're going to play, and the structure, and the way in which they're going to use their stars and involve them in the Sydney Roosters season preview. But yeah, look, they're a terrific side with a terrific board with a terrific head coach. But I feel like they've just got, you haven't just got that spine of Tedesco, Cherry Evans, Sam Walker, and Reece Robson, but then you've also got Marky Mark, Daniel Tupou, Billy Smith. What a great centre he is. He's an underrated centre because he struggled with injury so much through 2020, 2022 to 2024 sort of thing. And even before that, 2021, I think he's been around since then as well. But, I think a shining light for the Roosters too was Sandon Smith. I know he's gone to Newcastle now, but he started the season in the number 6 jersey alongside Chad Townsend in number 7. And I thought Sandon Smith played really well. I think the Roosters, one of their best games of the year was against the Dragons at Allianz Stadium, and Sandon Smith was outstanding in that game, and got the man of the match there. And yeah, I just think the Sydney Roosters need to make sure that they. If you ask the Roosters organisation, if you ask the Roosters supporters, if you ask Trent Robinson, if you even ask some of the experienced players, do you reckon they've underachieved since 2020, considering the roster they've got? Yeah, they have. They haven't made a grand final since 2019. It's now 2026, and if you're a rugby league fan, you're probably listening to this going, you know what? Fuck, that's not that long. That's not that long. Like some, Newcastle supporters haven't seen their team in a grand final since 2001. That's a long, long fucking time ago, 26 years ago. So, um, you know, but with the Roosters and the roster they've got, the coaching staff they've got, you probably expect a little bit more. You probably um, needed to probably have made a grand final considering the roster they've had. I reckon they've underachieved. So, in my opinion, I think that Trent Robinson's a really good coach. But if they're not to make a grand final in the next 2 years, I reckon he should be under some pressure. I really do. I think he's a great coach. He's got a great relationship with players. He understands the game. His press conferences are impressive when he talks about the game, when he analyses the game, and he takes ownership at times with his side, saying, no, we should have done this better, we should have done that better, which is refreshing hearing a coach, talk about not come up with excuses all the time. He does sometimes, but overall, I think he takes a lot of accountability and ownership if his side haven't performed in press conferences. So, it's just a matter of making sure that they can get to a grand final in the next 2 years with that spine. Because at the end of the day, James Tedesco's most likely going to retire after 2027, you'd think, or possibly 2028. I just think with the roster they've got, they have to make a grand final in 2026. And if they don't, then, like, for example, say if Cherry Evans gets injured or Sam Walker gets injured, then you've got Hugo Savala ready to come straight in, who's a bloody good half. He was outstanding in 2025. His kicking game was outstanding. Man, he what a great player. What a fantastic player. For me, one of the best Roosters wins of 2025 was, I think it was round 4. Round 5, and they took on the Brisbane Broncos, and Brisbane smashed them by 50 points in round 1, as I mentioned earlier. But then 5 weeks later, the Roosters come back and they beat them well. So, at Suncorp Stadium. So, yeah, really intriguing to see the way in which they handle the preseason challenge. How is Trent Robinson gonna do it? Will he take the preseason challenge seriously? Will he play his full strength squad for those 2 matches? Will he just get them all to rest before round 1? So I think it's going to be really interesting with the Roosters and their recruits to see how they're going to play them, what positions they're going to play them. There's no guarantees that Cherry's going to wear the 6. My opinion is he will, but he may very well wear the 7 for the Roosters and Sam Walker go to 6. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of questions going into 2026. I do believe they may start slowly, but I do believe they will make the top 4, I think. I mean, like, you look at their roster, look at them. It's absolutely incredible. So that's it for 2025. I know I spoke about 2026 because if you look at their year, there wasn't overly too much to talk about in 2025. It's more about analysing what they did, why they're doing it, and it's mainly because of 2026 and 2027 that they are doing these, that they had to have that building year and get these younger players, as much experience as possible. But for me, one of their best players of the year was Robert Toyer. Really solid defensively, really great in attack. And, after about 11, 12 games for the Roosters, he makes his Origin debut. Unbelievable player. unbelievable player. Wins an Origin series, makes the finals in his first year of NRL. For a young bloke in the centres, man, it was so much talent, so much speed. Look, he's a centre, but if they were really short of fullbacks one day, he played fullback. I reckon he'd do a bloody good job there as well. So he's got so much speed, just absolutely electric, and the footwork is just incredible. Like I'm watching him, and my eyes can't keep up to him at times. He's that good. He's unbelievable. All right, so that's the Roosters 2025 season review. This is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. If you haven't done so already, please follow on Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Cheers.